Hello, everyone. My name is Evan Gatesman, and this is a sustainability podcast from Nevada Conservation League, where we're working to create conversations around sustainability. The Nevada Conservation League is the independent political voice of the Nevada conservation community, so we work to maintain and enhance the natural character of Nevada and the quality of life around Nevada through effective advocacy, the election of pro-conservation candidates, and building collaboration. And it's my absolute pleasure to introduce our first guest, Adam Igwe, who I originally met at a gardening event we had a couple weeks ago. And then we also hosted him at a composting event, which he took part in, which was really cool. And then we had the pleasure of checking out his hemp farm out in Pahrump, just 90 minutes outside of Vegas, which was absolutely fascinating. So with that said, Adam, what's the difference between hemp and marijuana? Is that the same thing?
Yeah, so a lot of people, think when they think hemp, they think marijuana. When they think marijuana, they think hemp. Very much hemp is the sister, or not really a sister, more like a cousin. They're both cannabis L-sativa plants. However, with hemp, you're looking at something that has less than 0.3% THC. And as long as it has less than 0.3% THC, then it's considered industrial hemp. So there's a lot of plants that look just like marijuana, grow just like marijuana, but have that less than 0.3% THC. And so they categorize as industrial hemp.
Wow, I can see why people are confused though, because I mean, it's the same exact plant, but it just has slightly different chemical makeup, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. The cannabinoid makeup, really, which is the type of things that are in there, which is what a THC would be considered as. But the only part that's psychoactive inside marijuana is THC. And that's what makes marijuana marijuana.
Gotcha. So that's basically the main difference. And so why is it so controversial? I mean, this thing has less THC, so it has less of the chemical that's going to get you high in theory. So why this should not be smokable, right? But why is it so controversial to grow this?
You could go theory after theory. Studies have been done, and they found out that just the plant of how easy it is to grow was a threat to a lot of big industries. So a lot of propaganda got started, reefer madness. I would suggest a lot of people, if they're really interested in finding out true facts, look into a book or even the website, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, which has the book free online there. Check that out. Liberate your mind a little bit on the topic. But basically, the plant has been here since, even America's been here, and way far back. There's documents even in China and Asia, is even stuff in Egypt where the plant has been used even as feminine products and stuff for during that time for girls and stuff, about how even George Washington, Abraham Lincoln grew this plant and even had quotes of saying to make the most of this plant in the agriculture industry, because it was a main thing that would set the American people separate from Britain and being able to be sustainable, was growing this plant. They supported fully on making sure that we could make the most out of this. They've been always there with us, working together synergistically as we evolved as human beings, and the plant will evolve also to serve us better, from clothing, textiles to medicinal purposes. The plant has always been there, and even as food, as grain source, and a sustainable protein source as well.
Wow, that's a lot of different uses.
So it is, and that's what scares so much of the industries, and probably most likely the reason why it's actually illegal. So
that's just interesting though as well, because like something like alcohol, which is obviously super addictive and deadly, is
that's right,
legal but not controversial, and then something like marijuana has been illegal for all these years, and it's not super deadly or addictive necessarily, but it is controversial. It doesn't make that much sense. It's pretty backwards.
Yeah. That, and again, that's the power of the media. Whatever they put out there, that's a threat to people's, or to corporations. Then they could control that very easily, and they could kind of manipulate what people would perceive and think as far as being good. Like reefer madness was one of the biggest type of media setup that exists out there that was just pretty much fake news that came out saying that if you smoke marijuana, then you're going to go crazy and start raping people and robbing places and all that stuff. Now we have a whole generation of people that believes that marijuana is that bad. The power of media.
For sure. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So you said that there's a lot of different uses. You mentioned it's not just rope anymore, but I mean, according to your website, I checked it out, by the way, real quick, his website, waterrockfarming.com. Go check it out. It's really cool. Has this super neat video about permaculture on it, which is really well put together, and a lot of other concepts which Adam applies to his farm, which we checked out. It was super neat. Other things that it says it could be used for on his website are textiles, so that's clothing, insulation for houses, animal bedding, composting, paper fiber, and fiber board. So I mean, that's a lot of different things that this one plant could go into.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's the beauty of it. You know, since even at the beginning, there was even during World War I and stuff, they had a movement to where they were trying to make farmers to be able to have multiple sources of income based off of even their bio waste that they were creating and stuff. In the 1940s, Harris Ford came out with a vehicle that was actually made from hemp as far as the outside of it, and it was really super strong to where he would take like a sledgehammer and like hit the car, and it would just kind of bounce off. And it was made with a hemp dominant and also a soy mix of just bio waste tied in with that. So they have always been trying to make different types of multiple streams for incomes for farmers. And then they also have always been trying to, you know, divert that to where a farmer only grows one thing and has one source of income. So then they can kind of better control that. So cannabis in general, with its many uses, allows for a multiple stream of income, allows for to be able to hit all those different types of industry, you know, textile industry for clothing, and then also making different types of fibers, plastics, even bioplastics, and then going into even the food line with its seed. You can make a very dominant oil based off of it, hemp seed oil, which is great for, it actually has all the fatty acids, essential fatty acids that your body needs, you know, omega-3s and everything, 6s, 9s, 12, all that. And also the protein inside of it is very dominant as well. So it's a very sustainable seed, great for even animal feeding, which right now there's a lot of like diversity in the Nevada right now about even being able to feed animals the seed, which we already know is good for them and great for them. And from the seeds, even to that, from the fibers, we have the medicinal side, which is great besides the THC and all the benefits that THC could have. But there's also non-psychoactive cannabinoids inside the plant. And there's over like 100 non-psychoactive, cannabinoids inside this plant that will actually help with people with like epilepsy, such as like CBD, which is a major other side that's very dominant inside the plant, just like THC is. Once you take that out, you have a CBD side, and the CBD is helping with people with epilepsy and all those sorts of things, just to cover like one or two of those.
Yeah, I've seen those videos on Facebook where they'll have some kid having seizures just uncontrollably all the time, really high frequency, and then they start taking like droplets of a tincture or something, like a CBD tincture. No THC, so no psychoactive effects, and they just all of a sudden the frequency of the seizures goes down, the intensity of the seizures goes down, and man, it's like that's pretty incredible. Like if nothing else, it's at least used for that, but also hempcrete. Is that a thing? Like I mean, you're using the fibers of hemp to put together bricks, basically, right? How does that work?
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. And that's a whole nother aspect of it too. Inside the plant, you know, you have the bast fibers, which is used for making textiles and clothing and all the materials mentioned. But then you also have a wodacious side to the plant, which is the inner core of it that is easily broken up and made to like a herd / shiv. So it's called hemp herds or hemp shivs. And you can use that stuff to actually make a building material out of called hempcrete. Once you mix that with hydrogenated lime, and hydrogenated lime is not too complicated to make. You can even find the bags in like Lowe's and like Home Depot stores now, and as long as like in Vegas even you can find that stuff. So some of the experiments that I'm trying to do on my farm too is including with that. Before when I first started to grow back in 2018, not too long ago, I could not find any sort of hydrogenated lime in the state. And then all of a sudden now it's available in Lowe's and Home Depot and stuff. So this is opening eyes to people to where now we're allowed to be able to get the resources that we need to start making more economical building materials. And the great thing about that hempcrete is that it's breathable. It's breathable, so then like your walls could actually regulate moisture and cooling at the same time, and breathe like a living, living organism almost, and making your house where it's healthy. There's so much chemicals. If you look into some of the chemicals that are used for building materials, including insulation and all that stuff, you're gonna freak out. We thought, even the stuff that they're using that was causing cancer in the insulation before,
asbestos?
Asbestos, yeah, that stuff was like horrible. I mean, there's even stuff in there, you're even using lead and paint and all that stuff too, that they're still continuing to use bad stuff. That was just a few things that are really bad in there. And there's kids, there's children and people in general that are allergic to this type of stuff. But so if we start focusing more and looking into hempcrete and the ability to start adding that in to the building side of things, then we're going to be looking at a more sustainable way of building homes and structures and houses and everything. And the more people start growing this, the more available that's going to be for everyone, and the more affordable it'll get.
Yeah, they even say that stuff grows like a weed, I heard.
Yeah, it sure does. I even have rogue seed plants that are just growing on their own all around the house from doing harvest. When we got seeds, some of the seeds just fall down, and then just after the raining season, they just start popping up and growing everywhere. So yeah, it's called weed for a reason. It does grow everywhere, and it could even do very well with even low bits of water in the desert area that we're currently at in southern Nevada. So that's a very exciting thing.
Yeah, that's absolutely absurd, to be honest. Like trying to grow stuff out here in my garden or just potted plants it's not easy out here. I mean, there's a lot of different variables, but essentially it's really dry and hot. And so that a lot of people think that there's no such thing as too much sunlight when they're growing, but out here there definitely is. They could definitely scorch and roast your plants and kill them off, and they'll just shrivel up, and oh man, it's brutal. So the fact that they just grow out here with, not that much effort until the growing season is just actually crazy, because you would expect only like creosote and Joshua trees to be out there basically.
Yes, creosote. Creosote grows everywhere, and they are everywhere. They're great. They do produce food for bees and all that stuff, and so I guess they have medicinal purposes as well. If you ever get cut or something like that, creosote, I guess the Indians used to use for putting on wounds and all that stuff. So creosote itself is great, and glad that does grow. But it's great to know that we could actually have something else to grow here instead of just alfalfa, which uses a lot of water, and it tends to use a lot of water. We could start using things like industrial hemp that actually has a taproot that goes really deep and actually can start pulling up nutrients and water from very down below. I have plants that are still thriving right now, and even though the temperatures are increasing and the rain is becoming much less, which is to none pretty much, they're still alive and they're still doing well. And so I'm just kind of watching them and just seeing how well these plants could actually do without the amount of water, without any sort of water or anything. So, and we have some that are going to flower and everything all on their own. It's fascinating to see that, that there's plants that are able to grow just like as well as, the creosote and the other weeds that we consider as weeds that are growing out here on their own like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So another thing that you have on your website is it's permaculture, like I mentioned before. But so what is permaculture? Like, what does that mean to you, and how does that play a role in your farm?
Yeah, so permaculture is what my farm is about. I specialize in high desert industrial hemp-based permaculture. So meaning that I'm using hemp to be able to create a permaculture system on how to grow things. I'm also adding in, a food chain and everything off of that base. But I use hemp to grow hemp, and I use hemp to also grow other things like tomatoes and plants based off of great composting waste. Right now, we're not at the point where I can start selling the fibers of the plant. So what I'm doing now with the plants is experimenting different ways to use those fibers on my current farm. So with the stalks being full of fats and lipids, I would then start feeding them to my goats, since I have goats. and they'll eat those, and then they'll compost it, break it up a little bit, and then what they don't break up, I'll run through like a little farm chipper shredder and break that up and use it for bedding for them too. And then once that bedding goes bad, it gets oversaturated with dung, then I will scoop it out and compost it, and then use that to then grow the next grow season. So I have hemp growing hemp that's just going through a cycle, including the goats. I'll also use the ground up, shiv and herds and stuff from the hemp for chicken bedding as well, not just for the goats. And so the chickens, they love to lay their eggs and do all that stuff on there too. And I compost that as well and add that in. So I get two forms of animal manure, all digested and processed by, animals, chickens and goats. And also using it in vermicompost too, which allows to retain water since the herds and shivs hold water just as like wood chips do, maybe even a little bit more. It's great to help keep those type of things, beddings very moist during these hot seasons.
Definitely agree. Awesome. So obviously you get a ton of use out of that hemp, and then it gets moved into something else, and then it moves into something else, and then moves into something else. So multi-use, and then it gets composted. And at the end of the day, it becomes basically soil after it gets composted, right?
Yeah, that's right. It becomes a soil that I can start using to grow more plants and everything. I'm putting carbon back into the ground where it belongs. And going back to a little bit more of permaculture, that's just how my system is tied into what permaculture is to me. Permaculture, though, based off of like Permaculture 1, which is what you'll see on the website, referring to that book. I cover like what the three main topics that they talk about in that, which the first thing is earth care, second, people care, and then third is a fair share. So earth care, taking care of the ground, composting, doing any sort of things like vermicompost, anything to be able to add carbon back into the soil and build soil and keep the ground covered at all times. Another thing I didn't mention even, I make, I don't know if 100 Monkeys, people thought of this before or anything like that, but I make biochar from hemp. I call it Hemp Char. And so I have a whole thing of like doing Hemp Char too, which is just activated carbon that's derived from hemp. So I have a burner, and I use pretty much just like scrap newspaper or mail or, cardboard boxes from orders and all that stuff in there to even help cook the hemp char itself and create that. And then I grab that hemp char and I put it back into the dirt too. That makes great for supporting the microbes, because the soil is alive and we have to be able to take care of that. Just as we're discovering that our gut is alive and we have microbes in there, so does the ground itself. And it's very, very complex of how it all works and everything too, but simple to do, which is great. So that's part of the earth care part that I have. As far as people care, community is everything in agriculture. We have to be able to come together and start sharing ideas. Right now, because of marijuana being illegal, that the cannabis industry itself is very to itself. People always think that they discovered the new way and the best way to grow cannabis, so they don't share the information because they don't want to support their competition out there. But with agriculture and even with industrial hemp, now we're starting to find people that start building community-based organizations, come together and share knowledge, are thriving a lot better than those who are keeping to themselves. So that's how I do with people care. And then fair share is just, again, giving back a portion of what you take from the ground back to it. And I do that by putting the hemp stalks and things like that right back into the ground where it belongs. So that's whatever you take as far as you harvest, don't forget to also put back in and, support the soil, support the ground, and, only taking what you need.
Awesome. That's cool. Thank you for that. And the tie back into I think that's kind of a Native American perspective, at least I associate with them, where it's like you're using 100% of everything. If not, you're putting it back, that kind of thing, which is really cool. So that biochar thing, did you get that idea from the Amazonian forest of the terra preta soil with it just, I think that's just Greek for black soil or black earth?
Yeah, as far as biochar, that's it's called terra preta. Terra preta is just how they made the soil in Amazon times. They've been doing this for thousands of years. Again, all I'm doing is just rediscovering what they've done in the past and what we've forgotten due to just the westernization of growing. Biochar is since they've been using it in the Amazon times, it's called Terra Preta. And they've digged up spots in the Amazonian jungle and then found really rich, dark soil, which was just completely different than the rest of the soil around them. And the carbon base that's in activated, charcoal like that, carbon is completely different and structured to where it has a very high surface area. So the hotter you cook something without oxygen, the more surface area it increases. It makes these minute, almost like bubbles or caves inside of its shell-like structure. And that helps to harbor microbes and everything. So it's like a hotel for all these different types of microorganisms that live inside the dirt. And it gives them a carbon-based form that they could keep feeding on and thriving on around and in, and producing the things that plants need to survive. It has hydration properties, meaning that it can retain and give water to the plants as needed. It also does that same thing with any sort of fertilizers that are in there, like compost, nitrogen. It can hold, and then it will give to the plant in accordance to what the plant needs. And it can also even hold like things such as like heavy metals in there and stuff too. And so it helps. It's a big deal when it comes to fixing soil. Yeah, biochar is superb.
Awesome. So, I mean, I have a garden in my backyard, and how would I use something like biochar to actually feed my garden? I mean, how would I make that, I guess?
Yeah, so it's great. And it's pretty decently simple. On my website, I believe I have a blog there, and I kind of talked about a little bit of how I make it. What I use is a 2-barrel method, actually 3-barrel. The top 2 55-gallon barrels, one with the bottom completely taken out. So that's like kind of like the chimney that goes on top. And then a cage piece that goes in the middle, which you could use like 2 metal poles or whatever, sit on top of the barrel. And then inside that 55-gallon barrel that you're going to set on top, you would put a 30-gallon barrel there with a lid, and pretty much with like little lugs that you could seal it shut. Put all the material that you need inside that you're going to turn into biochar. And the cool thing is about biochar, whatever you turn into, it will actually become like, it will keep its form. So it'll keep its form in like pine cones. If you throw a pine cone in there and it gets turned into biochar, it will keep its form as a pine cone. It'll just be this biochar pine cone, which is pretty awesome looking. So, and it does that with any sort of, biomass that exists there. And it's pretty simple. You take one of those in a 30-gallon bucket. After you seal it up, you have like a couple holes in the bottom. So then any sort of like biocarbon will then actually kind of secrete as it's cooking. You fill up anything that you're going to heat up, like the wood on the outside, to be able to create the heat and the high heating conditions that biochar needs in order to be able to be created. And then light it on fire, let that stuff burn all around that barrel inside the 55-gallon barrel, which is be a burn barrel. So it has to have holes inside there to help, fuel all that. And then you can put that other one on top. So then it's like a chimney and creates a second burn and make sure that there's no smoke coming off of the top as much. So sufficiently burning it is very important. If you don't want to do that, you can also just dig a pit, put all the material that you want, and then light up on the top of the pile and burn it and create it all the way down, and then smother it when the coals get hot. Smother it completely, and then after it's smothered and cooled down, when you open it up, there'll be biochar in there, but that would also include a lot more ash, which will increase your pH, which we already have a high increase of. So there's different techniques, and that's definitely how the Indians used it, was digging holes and doing it that way. It's more easy that way, but since we do have easy access to barrels where we're at and everything, I would definitely look in more to making your own cooker and something where you can kind of control the amount of ash that you have inside of it too and stuff. So there's an art to it, and it's really fun, and that's why I like to kind of do it with like Hemp Char. I think it's just a little bit more part of my sustainable circle, being able to use hemp to grow hemp. So
yeah, that's phenomenal. I think that's one of my favorite parts about your farm is that like it's so sustainable. It's the perfect representation of something that you're using something repeatedly and using everything. So I just love that. So thanks for what you're doing.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate you seeing me. Be surprised that many people just don't see it,
Absolutely. Also, I recognize that I went and visited your website again just to get some more details and check it out a little bit more. and I saw the photos of your farm when it's blooming, like the growing season. And
Yeah.
that's pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool. So definitely everyone else, hop up waterrockfarming.com, check it out. Another last question for you, Adam. Where are you going from here? What are your aspirations, your goals? What's your plan?
Oh, I got to keep doing what I'm doing. I do a lot of product development right now. I got the hemp tinctures are some of like the strongest on the markets for like the best affordable price too. I want to be able to help people as much as possible. I'm very big about the community, so I want to be able to get, you know, the hands of these tinctures into the people who need it the most, the people who have pain. You know, we're in the middle of this huge epidemic right now with opioid addiction going on. And there's a lot of people that even tell me that they don't have to take nearly as much pain medication as they did before by taking the tincture with it and stuff. Again, you've got to keep in mind everybody's cannabinoid system inside your body is different. And so these do affect people differently and everything. So it's not a guarantee that's going to work. There's not a guarantee in saying that it's going to heal you from all your problems. But that's why I like to try to get these out to people as much as possible. And so then they could try it, see if it works for you. If it works for you, then great. You know, let's just keep getting you medicated. Make sure that you're getting medicated properly with things that aren't going to be killing your kidneys and killing parts inside of your body that, you know, that are crucial and that are proven that to what opioids do be great and stuff. So, you know, it's important to help people, and I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to keep doing what I do, keep helping the environment, keep helping the people that are around me and even abroad. And, you know, I'm on that movement, that spirit of the industry. And I got to keep going with it. So what I'm going to be doing is probably even also adding in more different things. A lot of people say that you got to focus 100% on hemp if you're going to grow hemp. But to me, it's like if you're growing that much hemp to where you have to focus 100% on it, maybe you should cut down a little bit and add in something else too. You know, like right now I got tomatoes going in, I got squash, watermelon, all these different type of things. So then hopefully I can start getting some food, fruits, and vegetables also to my local community as well, and start maybe developing a much needed community supported agriculture system, since Nevada is at its lowest right now of the state for any sort of thing that's supported by agriculture. So my goal is to be able to help teach people, help grow and spread the word about the truth of hemp and the truth of what big ag is really doing and what the alternative is and what we can start doing to help support and become self-sufficient as a state and as a nation and even worldwide.
Wow, that was awesome. Thanks so much for being our first guest, Adam. And also I wanted to give a quick shout out to my organization, Nevada Conservation League. Please check out our Facebook page. We got events going on all the time, probably 4 times a month. And so this was Nevada Conservation League Sustainability Podcast. And thanks for hanging out with us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Perfect.